Live right now. Oh, for that one? Boy. Oh, I gave the remote to. I gave to. Oh, black. But I think the laptop, right? Use that laptop. All right. Ready? Ready? people in this. 50 people in this. What's up? Mình tạo được khá really full life and first things funny. The full life and then finish go to life. You know what I mean? Like the four screen live and friendships or birds. Yeah. But so fun. Like Shock, no. Oh. Yeah. No, like automatic. Yeah. It's the lane, but that's cool. You two don't have that. Man, like, yeah. Like down round. Told the people showed up. Also, people people coming to us. Mhm. Fascio, tama. So,
Good morning and welcome. So this morning, the panel of a three-person panel will share their stories, and their stories are about their transition. This is a sign. That's an old-fashioned sort of sign. The new sign is journey. Today, the work we're going to focus on strengths and tools and habits and strategies that help them transition on their journey. We're going to open with their individual stories. The couple, a young couple, they wanted to have a baby. The woman did get pregnant, and the man himself loved music. He loved listening to guitar, piano, singing. His dream would be that the baby would have to sing, be able to listen to music. As the woman progressed in pregnancy, he would play to the baby in utero. And the baby didn't have any response. Mother tried playing on the piano and singing, and there was no response in utero. And after the baby was born, they tried to teach music, but unfortunately, there was no response. What the father did, he became more internalized with anger and grief, the loss. The perfect dream would be the boy that could sing and enjoy music just like he did. That went away. As the boy got older, he wanted the father to aspire to be the same thing. The father was still feeling grief and loss of everything was broke. They became more distant. As the boy got older and became a man himself, he got married, and the wife got pregnant. And the baby was born, happened to be deaf. Man was so excited that the baby was also deaf, so he could have that shared inspiration with them. But the grandfather, how they responded, my daughter is deaf, let the father know, if you want to socialize with my daughter, you have to learn sign as well. The father said, nope, I'm not going to do that. Grandfather then took the baby and sheltered it away, and they grew more and more distant. But the father wanted to socialize with his family, wanted to socialize with his granddaughter. One day the father called, please come and visit me. His son responded, why am I visiting? The father was very nervous, watching television. Man says, why am I here? Father said, wait patiently for just one moment. The father said, He was still nervous, he was shaking. So the father said, I love you inside. And said, I miss you inside. And the son looked at him and said, oh, you've learned sign. I've been learning as we go along. Oh, you were learning from my baby. No. I'm learning from my baby, you. That father can grieve, can be angry, and can carry on for a long while. But he decided to experience something new and decided to go to college and learn Excel and learn culture. And so the whole family could be involved with each other. Today, this morning, is about stories about transition and journey.
So, I want all of you to recognize what your life's transitions are. Many of these things may apply to you as well. Maybe you have yourself experienced loss, or you're encountering a new disability, or you have a new journey. You're going to college. All these different types of experiences. Or you got a new job, and then later maybe you lost that job, you got laid off. A lot of different experiences that people go through on their journey of life. And emotions can be rocky as well going along with those transitions. You may feel like you have the drive and you're trying to keep steady, and then all of a sudden you hit a low point. But there will be another peak. That's all part of the journey. Maybe you have family support. Maybe you can get therapy. Maybe you can talk with your friends. There's a lot of different resources that you can access in order to start your journey of change and transition within your life to understand how you can be successful. So the emotions could be grief that you could be experiencing. You can feel depression, anxiety, sadness. You can really run the gamut. And of course, happiness is something that you may see on the surface, whereas with negative emotions maybe hidden inside. And that is a natural feeling to express. It's part of your growth, of your journey of life. And so how do you embrace those changes? It's going to be hard, right? It's not easy. It's a heavy load. It's a heavy lift. But the first step is to embrace it, accept it, and move through it.
Right now, we wanted you to give you a moment, an opportunity to kind of consider your own journeys. What are you currently experiencing? How are you changing? How are you transitioning onto a new role in life? My two children now are getting older. They're 20s and they're moving on to college and university. My wife and I have sort of empty nest syndrome. Personally, my personal journey. But what are you? What are you going through? Think about a moment on your own personal journey and how you establish that. So that can give you a moment of vision. And then their own panel will discuss the tools and skills you may need to be able to transition into your new journey and enjoy that.
So we just were talking about your mindset, right? And it's very important to find, maybe sometimes you're watching the news and you see things that are applying to your life. Take the time, sorry, I lost the PowerPoint sheet. We're having a little bit of a technical issue. Okay, perfect. So if you have a mindset that is more positive, these chapters tell you that you're having to deal with frustrating you, maybe something that has changed. Maybe it's like a light in the dark that you found. That positive mind frame is really going to help you move through those. And you can, rather than calling them, scary changes, you can call them opportunities. And some people are really afraid of change. It can be a difficult thing to move through. You may think, no, I want things to stay exactly as they are. But really just think of it as an opportunity. It's a way for us to feel happy and move forward. And think of those changes as opportunities. Really, it applies to us up here as well.
When you see the butterfly, okay, when you see an image or a film of a butterfly, that butterfly is a universal symbol of what it means to transition, to change. or metamorphosize. In the old sort of, from something old to something new. In the past, the butterfly was actually a caterpillar. Something happened, and it emerged and metamorphosized into a butterfly. And they learned maybe to swim, to travel, and we let the butterfly along their journey and have new experiences along that path. We hope today you can include a butterfly as your own sort of image or your tool for whatever thing you want to have. It's important inspiration to love yourself.
So now we're going to pause for a moment because I want to turn it over to our amazing panel that we have here this morning. They're going to share their own journey and their transition. So I'm going to call, first I'm going to call up Clyde, and then next is going to be Jesse, and then our last panelist is Terrylene. So everyone please come on up here. So I'm going to turn the floor over to the panel. I'm going to be sitting off to the side to copy sign. If there's any questions in the audience, we'll be able to hear that for folks watching on the live. We're going to be doing some changes and a little bit of after.
Oh, slide off. So close. Yes, that's the base right there. Don't issue. Clear.
Great. So, I'm going to let the community let you know who I am. I'm glad thanking each and every one of you for coming on a beautiful day like today. You could be going to the beach, you could be going to the park, you could be going to Disneyland, but the three of you chose to be here. So we really recognize your willingness to open up and share your stories. It's really important. Maybe some emotions will come up, maybe get a little disconcerted, but we really want to recognize and appreciate your strength, being able to do that, and your sturdiness to your path, and to share with the community. You know, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, we discussed like who would be really perfect. That was the shortest meeting that we had. 3 minutes, we said the names, and we were done. That was it. Okay, well, good enough. Yep, that was it. The stories we were going through, social media, personal chats, really touched our heart. But the three of us represent diversity, identities, and experiences. Your stories are really impactful, and how you navigated that difficult experience is really inspiring. It's inspiring. We hope your inspiration will spread and spark others for their own journey. Thank you. If you each go through and if you don't mind sort of sharing your name, where you're from, what your life transition experience is, that moment that caused you to sort of take a step back and your world just became topsy-turvy. Really, yeah. My name is Clyde Catron from Fresno, California, 3 hours north of LA. It's just there. My lead transition, really. It started when I became addicted to drugs, meth in particular, amphetamine, and then really got myself to Skid Row in downtown LA. I lived in Skid Row really for 5 years total. 3 years itself on the streets, addicted to drugs. 2 years after prison incarceration. I got myself in a drug transition program, and then in my apartment in Boyle Heights. That's my biggest transition from there. Really, I love it. And who I am and where I am right now, I just love it. I'm so happy to be there.
Hello, everyone. My life transition, I think, would have to start with when I was a little girl. When I was sexually abused growing up. And I had to live with that secret. And then how I got involved with how I really escaped from that situation and I survived that abuse was I went inward and I got creative and I hid in the bathroom. The bathroom typically is the most safe place. I was able to tell myself stories, situation that I was in, what was happening to me, and the fact that I wasn't able to tell anybody. So I went, like I said, I went inward, and I went into my creative life until I had to face the abuse again. I from age 4 to age 12. Then after that, I was able to work on myself and learn how to really beat that situation, and as well as to forgive, not to forgive the person, but to forgive myself and not blame myself. Um, Even though I was a child and I was completely innocent and naive, I blamed myself for what was being done to me, for what I was experiencing. And it was really it was a distortion in my thinking. I had to really work through that to forgive myself, allow myself to heal. And it was not easy, I have to say. It took many years. Until I think when I was around 21 or 22 or so, I became pregnant with my first son, Gio, and I understood what it meant to be a woman at that point. Breastfeeding, the fact that my body was able to sustain life and produce food, nourishment for my child. I understood what a beautiful connection that was. And really, Gio was my teacher. He helped me to heal. And I understood what it meant to be a real woman, what a woman's body is meant for. It's not for sexual exploitation or the gratification of others, it's for nourishment. It's to nourish humanity. It was a very powerful experience to come into my womanhood through my pregnancy and to be able to make that life-sustaining milk and to give life. And I still go through a lot of struggles from that point, sexual struggles. I was in unhealthy relationships. I was in a relationship where the person was a drinker. And so that was a very big struggle for me. I tried to be happy on the surface, tried to be a caretaker, go home and take care of things and not let anyone else outside be able to know what was going on with my son. I would go to work as though nothing was going on, so that was definitely a part of my journey. The most impactful moment was when my teacher, my son Gio, passed away at the age of 23. And he died by suicide. He took his own life. And I felt everything. I completely broke down. My precious son, my teacher, my amazing, beautiful human was gone. And his death was like a period. It ended someday. There was no going back from that period. There was no more holding tight to him. I couldn't do that anymore. It was gone. And I started from that point to understand the meaning of looking past and grief. I hadn't really understood grief before. I knew the word grief. Sure, I understood that was a concept, but I had never felt grief. Grief will impact all of you. We cannot escape grief. We cannot avoid grief. So I realized at that moment, at that point in my life journey, that the grief was a real transition point. And now I work to honor my son's life, his humanity, and I also love his pain. I know that his spirit is still out there, and his pain, I don't know if he feels pain. I don't think he does. And that's really profound to think about. But I've had a lot of challenges from that moment. Even to still this day, I still get hit by challenges. But I understand that is part of my life's journey. And really what I can control is how I respond to life, my response to those challenges that present themselves. And I do so with care, with love for myself. I take care of myself as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. So hello, my name is Useda, and I grew up in Los Angeles, California. Once I look at my past, where I was born, and I was born in Watts, South Central Los Angeles. I'm sure many of you in the room are familiar with that area. It was quite dangerous. There was a lot of gang activity. The Crips and the Bloods were constantly at war with each other. There were constantly shootouts over drugs, over money. So that was the situation that I was born into. So until I was 4 years of age, and then one morning I got up and I heard some noise. And I thought, okay, what's going on? I looked out the window to see what all the commotion was. And my mom was out there feeding some birds. And she was watering the grass. And I was hearing it at that point. I was listening to the bird song, and I was really enjoying that. And at that point, my mom was watering the grass. And I looked over, and of course, she looked over me, and I was looking in the window. But my mom seemed a little worried because she came in to check on me to see if I was okay. But really, I had a really high fever. I was quite ill, and I got because I had fever infections. And my brother, the two of us were very close growing up. We always were talking to each other. Somehow, it really upset him. He was talking to me a few times. And normally we play together, and he called my name a few times and didn't hear anything back, and then came in and said, hey mom, somebody's trying to commit suicide. He's not responding to my calls. And then my mother told my brother that I had actually become deaf. And he was very upset by that. And after that point, the relationship was really never the same. He wasn't play with me like he did before, so we didn't grow up close. So my mom at that point, she was like, what to do? I have a deaf son now. What do I do? The doctor told her, don't worry, there's a deaf school. It'll be the best thing for him. So my mom said, okay. So she took me over to Memorial School for the Deaf. And that school was new at that point. This was the 60s. It was 64. So I went into this school. It was a really nice new school. And I grew up there. I went there from K through all the way through K through 12, and I really enjoyed my time at that school. It was really a great, awesome experience. I had great teachers there, and I'll never forget that. I was involved with the drama class, and which I really enjoyed. We would do musicals. We would put on all sorts of different plays. I would really like to sing along to the songs, or to sign along to the songs. The King and I, Peter Pan, Oliver, A Christmas Carol. We put all these different productions on during my time at Walton. And I was also very heavily involved with the church. I would sign with the choir, and I would always sing songs, especially for the Christmas pageants. And the two of us have been friends for a long time and grown up together. So that's been a really beautiful experience. And my dreams previously of becoming a musician, maybe becoming like someone who would sign music as part of a career. So that was part of my transition. And then in 1979 or 78, actually, I graduated from high school. At that point, then I went over to LATTC for business classes, took some general ed classes there. And then at that time, I was never really happy at home because my mom was always just very worried about the fact that I was deaf, thought that it wasn't safe that I would go outside of the home. My brother and sister were allowed to go out, but I was really tethered to home. My mom felt that I was too vulnerable to be out in the world. So I felt really lonely. So at that point, I decided to call my VR counselor to see if I could get some help with finding a job. And I told him about my friends who had deaf people who were working. And I said, yeah, I know about that. And the VR counselor decided that, hey, that might be a good way for me to become independent. And this was when I was 20 years of age. So I was able to get that job. I was so happy. I met a lot of nice people there, made a lot of friends at that job. And then one day, I decided, I had to tell my parents, hey, it's time. I need to move on. That I had my mind set on this. And I kept telling myself, I need to do this, I need to tell them. I had set a timeline for myself. At noon, I'm going to tell my parents. At noon, I'm going to tell my parents. So I went and I was just trying to shower. I was so nervous the whole time. And then finally, I told my mom, and she was very upset, I have to say. So I was looking at the time. So actually, I was imagining that she would be upset. I wasn't looking at the I hadn't told her yet. I was just looking at the time. So finally, it was the clock struck noon, and she could tell something was wrong. She said, Jesus, what's wrong? And I said, well, I need to tell you something. I'm really happy with this job that I have, and I've been thinking about wanting to tell you, first of all, thank you for all your support and love that you've given me all throughout my life. There's many things you've done for me, and I want to tell you that, but I do want to move out. And my mom got so upset. She said, no. My father said, no, leave him alone. She told my mother, let him go. It's time to let him go. But my mother was so upset. She just wasn't going to try to let me go. So but I did have my mind set on it. I'm going to do it anyway, I told her. So it happened that night. I went to work in the bank. And it just so happened that my supervisor came over and said, hey, go home. Take your break. Everybody's taking their break. And I said, no, I want to stay. I want to work some overtime. I need to make some extra money. And then the supervisor came up and said, please go home. I want you to take a break. And, let everybody else have their turn and get overtime too. And I said, no. I was set on it. So then he went over to the manager. The manager came up and said, okay, let's go into my office. And he said, please listen to me. It's time for you to take your break. It's time to go home. Thank you for such hard work. We really appreciate you. And thank you for your willingness to do overtime. But then I went over to my friends and somehow the spirit was guiding me to go home, right? So I saw a lot of, relatives and cousins and aunts and uncles there, and I was like, what's going on? It's late at night. Why is everyone at my home? And my cousin came right up to me and said, are you okay? Are you doing okay? And grabbed me by the arm and dragged me inside, went into the bedroom, and was crying and let me know that my father had been shot. And it was very shocking. It was a horrible feeling to know that had happened. And it really impacted me. And after that, we did the funeral and all those rites. And I changed my mind. I was thinking, should I move out? And I thought, no, I'm going to stay. I'm not going to move. I have to, because my mother is depressed, and I don't want to stay in that area. So I kept working for the bank for years, and it never happened. I lived in LA in that area, and I would always walk around, and nothing ever happened. I was always safe. And then one night, I had finished work at like 3 or 4, and I would never stand and wait for the bus. I would always just walk. And it just so happened that a couple of men came up to me, and I felt like, hey, this isn't right. They're coming up to me. What do they want? They're going to bother me about something. And so I just stopped right there, and I prayed, and I asked for God's protection. and asked that no serious harm come to me. And then I kept on walking, and I was just strong in my faith. I kept walking, and then these guys decided to fight, and one of them actually stabbed me in my stomach, and once in my leg as well. And I kept fighting, and I was fighting them off, and one of them would fall down, but there were two of them, so they kept fighting back, and I just kept fighting, and I was screaming, help, help, help. And then finally they ran away because I was making such a ruckus. And then I went over to where I was at work and asked for help there. And what was beautiful was that I was able to see my spirit. Like smoke going through the air. And I saw it through my eyes. I was able to look down on myself, and I saw that there was something beautiful in the beyond. But something was telling me, no, it's not your time. Go back. Your spirit needs to be here on earth. So I saw my spirit come back into my body, and I woke back up. And I saw there were police, there was an ambulance there, and they were asking me, are you okay? I told them yes. And then they got me, they took me to the hospital. And my mom and my sister came to visit me while I was at the hospital. Hold on, sorry, I need a drink of water. Excuse me. And really, that had a pronounced impact on me. It's indescribable, the impact it had on me. But I just want to let you know, please do not do yourself ill. Don't try to harm yourself. Because at the beginning of my life, I saw where I was living in Watts. I saw many people who were dying on the streets. I saw it on TV. And I could not figure out how these people were able to continue breathing, how they could hurt others, how they were able to just continue living in this environment. Because yeah, it was a really scary time. It was a really scary place to be living. And when that happened to me, when I got stabbed, it was not that big of a deal. I just feel like I moved on to that. But before that, I was really afraid. And now, I'm not afraid of anything. And so after that time, sorry, I have to look at my notes a little bit. I've got something in mind in order so I don't jump all over the place.
Do you mind if I give you some information about you? So that's okay. So I have a little bit of information on you. Your individual stories, wow, really are very touching and impactful. You know, I'm sure everybody feels the same. Your stories about homelessness reminds me how ago that I met a homeless person. And I asked him, what's the best thing I can do for you? Food, money, just a cup of coffee. He said, no. Best you can do for me is say my name. Homeless, that's what I've been. I've seen, I've heard, I haven't heard my name in so many years. And that loss of identity, that sense of identity, is really impactful and powerful. So I would say his name over and over again. And I really never forgot his name. And your story about Geo, maybe really think about the term, you know, if a husband and wife, I use either called, they're called a widow or a widower. If a child is gone, the parents die, the child becomes an orphan. If the father's gone, or a child is gone, there's no name given. There's no honorific given in regard to a loss of a child. Wow, and Jesse, Jesus, your story, really a lot of similar experiences. Most people look at the death experience as parents grieve not having a hearing child. We often don't recognize deaf children as selves grieve in a way too. You know, the parents lose connection, the language deprivation. They are physically there, but they're emotionally disconnected. Sometimes we all need to analyze that and break down those barriers internally and unpack everything that's part of it. You know, support and forgive again. You know, so thank you all for sharing. So another question for you of impact. Some emotion that pop up in that moment. What really changed? For me, I feel really trapped in my addiction. I was just completely trapped in it. I had no way I could stop using meth. I couldn't. I had a very strong addictive personality disorder. And so really the addiction was marijuana. People think marijuana, oh, it's nothing, it's harmless or whatever. But for me, when I touch marijuana, whew, that's an all day, every day sort of thing, 24/7. Just I continued to use. And I couldn't find the time to get by without marijuana. So I use marijuana to see my family, I use marijuana to see any activities. I must get high from that. Before I do that, that's the addiction. And that led to alcohol. Then after alcohol led to cocaine. And I started using all of them all at the same time, tobacco, marijuana, alcohol, cocaine, until I tried meth. And meth is such a powerful substance that one day I tried meth, all of the others just became nothing. They were lost. They were gone. They weren't even part of the tobacco. I didn't need them anymore because I had meth. And I was able, my parents didn't know what to do with me because it was sudden, it was an impact. And then I went down to LA and walked around for maybe not have any idea of how I can live my life without it. I couldn't even plan it. Even when I was first arrested, incarcerated for 5 months, 5 months in jail, I got second strike, incarcerated. And that problematic in towers and really got angry. I lit a propane tank on fire. And then strike for another 5 months strike, it's fine. In my mind, I didn't care, strikes. I wanted to be out. I wanted to be out. I wanted to be able to use meth again. I did not spend a second walking, thinking free what it should be nice to be clean and sober. I just went straight back to Skid Row to use meth. And then I would use for another 7 months. I was 140 pounds, really thin. And I remember every night I would just sleep anywhere I could. I mean, I was wondering, how could I even ever? I don't know. It wasn't a thought. It never occurred to me at all. And I was just trapped in my addiction. And even when I was in a hands-off drug dealers or, fentanyl epidemic, and then you would touch it and you die. I never experienced it. But I still couldn't stop. I was seriously just trapped in that. And then, I would chase danger every day. And then I was out 11 months for sleeping in the trash bin, right? I didn't have meth on me at all, so I needed something to smoke, so I saw a cigarette. And that cigarette fell out and caught fire. And the police came in the trash bin, arsonist, right? And then in California, if you are committed arsonist and you commit a crime, you must register yourself as an arsonist. And then the state of California police system, every year you have to re-register where you live, like similar concept to a sex offender. An arsonist is the same concept. And then you can't go back to jail for that one. So 11 months jail. I didn't think I would fly for 11 months. I couldn't figure out what was going on. My lawyer said, prosecutor wants me to go to 6 years because second strike, arson, they should go to prison. Luckily, my lawyer suggested that I would do a sobriety program instead. The judge looked at everything, looked at my record. I never had a drug sobriety or anything in rehab, really. Never had tried that program before. So the judge said, if and only if the drug program is okay with an arsonist. He said, if the arsonist is setting fires over it, it means the drug program burned down. They don't know who I am. They know nothing about me. So the drug program came and interviewed me in jail, and I thought, okay, fine, they were fine, it's cool with me. And then even after 11 months, and when I transitioned into the drug program, I still had meth on my mind. I just teetering on that fence. Oh, maybe I can just beat the system and use and go back. And I still was just that meth was there. It was in my mind. The drug program was very strict. They would take a test every 3 days. Must follow their system. So I would just follow it and be adherent to it. And then what I wanted, start to use when I enjoyed my sobriety and started to, see the staff as an event and their sobriety journey and went through the prison, the homelessness, etc., and tried who they are and where they're at now. And then all of a sudden, my sobriety program, no marijuana, no alcohol, no, all those things except for cigarettes. Cigarettes were fun. I started to realize I was an addict for a long time, long before meth came in. Must have remembered myself, avoided myself, smoking weed. It really, 22, 25, that whole thing. And I tried to go along. What really saved me was the gym, going to the gym. I would go to the gym, work out, get that stuff, all meeting the men here. The sober program, we're very buff and sort of, that culture, that gang culture, the street culture, very sort of machoism. They get all to know each other and it would have to be clean and sober to go back in the community to beat all of the others out there that give you drugs, give you death, really just to try and build up your strength to go out. And that's the kind of the culture I loved. I fell in love with that. So that's when I realized, I transitioned from drug addiction to being clean and sober addiction. And so any way I can, my struggle, a lot of asking, how did you go clean and sober? I said, I had to, or I'd be in jail. I'd be put back in again. That answered my mother's prayer. My mother said, I always pray to God, please send my son to jail because he's not going to stop. So I had to go to jail to get that started. There's a lot of willpower behind everything that was there. Every ounce of you to really stop drug use and stop alcohol use. It takes everything about who you are to be out of it. All prison or dead. So that's where I am today, and I thank God for that, but I'm very happy with who I am now. And I'm very proud of that. One word you mentioned that's really critical to that one. Fentanyl. I think many people think the community don't specifically know what fentanyl is, the dangers. You might briefly explain or expand on what fentanyl is. Fentanyl is synthamphetamine or a morphine, really similar to opiates for pain like heroin. Fentanyl is really powerful because, just trace amount, a teeny tiny amount, a legal dose, not build a tolerance to understanding fentanyl in your human body. So if human body doesn't experience fentanyl before, fentanyl will go into your body like an opioid receptor. Then the body has receptors and get addicted to meth, addicted to cocaine, addicted to marijuana. The mind-body produces a natural chemical that's a very small amount to keep you alive, to keep you stable, to keep you consistent. But when you use fentanyl, that really breaks down the entire system. It becomes overwhelmed. Oftentimes, it does kill people. People who don't use very often can have a chance to survive. But typically,
It's a very deadly thing. The reason why fentanyl is on the streets is because fentanyl fits in meth or added into cocaine or added into any drugs, it becomes much more addictive. People know to get more, they go back to get more. They don't realize that way they have to start meth, then really starting to use meth every 5 minutes, really just using. I didn't understand. My system would break down. I couldn't. So that's fentanyl a couple of times, and I used shot up meth. Really just would crash for 2 or 3 days. Really, 2 days gone, and then all of a sudden again, I would use fentanyl in meth to make it more addictive. So really, right now, the drug dealers, when it be a client, they add fentanyl into it just to keep them around, just to keep that client around. It's a hard addiction to break. Thank you for sharing. Can I ask another question? I know your journey, or your separate journeys, really, you've met many people on your journey. Some people provide help, some people are not helpful. So what do you wish that people before you met, what do you wish they did say, or did do, or wish they didn't say, or didn't do?
So one thing that really is aggravating is that the stigma. People look down on my son, and they look down on my family as an extension of that. And the community wanted to know. We're very curious. It's really this really sick fascination with how he died. That's not the point. How did he die? Why don't you look at how my son lived? Look at what his life was rather than that last moment when he departed. Who Gio was. They really discount his whole life up until his last moment. That really aggravates me, and that stigma, the way that people look down on that. My son, he struggled immensely, and he was never able to find a counselor. It was really difficult to find somebody to provide the services that he needed, and he desperately wanted help. He did. He wanted support. He needed it, but he's also standoffish because the community, both hearing and the deaf community, looks down on him. Oh, you have a mental or emotional breakdown, you're struggling with mental health. What's wrong with you, man? There's nothing wrong with him. If you're struggling with mental or emotional health, it's okay. It's important that we be there, that we support that person, that we sit with them, and we quietly listen to them. Don't judge them. Sit there and have compassion. Share that space with them. And let them talk. Just let them talk it out with you. Or maybe they want to go out and walk. Hey, let's go out together. Let's go get some tea. Let's go sit and be together. So that when you're scrolling online, you're like, oh, that misconnection. And you just see this story get spread around the community. What's that for? Who's that to benefit? It doesn't benefit anybody. So that's why I really kind of closed off from the community quite a bit. Over time, I have felt okay and ready, and I am ready now, to engage with people and to share my stories. And I want to encourage the community to be more open and to not hide. And it's really two things. There's the person who's struggling, they need to be open. They need support. And those folks are out there, and they need to grow in that. But also, the people who judge them need to stop. Everyone goes through something. Everyone will experience a struggle. Every single person has a life journey. That's what we're born for. That's what it experience life, to go through the trials and tribulations, to have love, frustration, to be artists, to go into business, whatever it is that your life is about. My family, there's many different journeys within my family. There's drug addiction within my family. There's heroin addiction within my family. There's homelessness. And have to support people through that. Everybody has problems. And that's okay. It's important to keep going with love, self-care, and respect for each other. And if someone is struggling, be there for them. Be that strong person that they can rely on. Because when depression hits you, it can happen overnight, in 1 second. I thought I had a really great life. I was going through my journey, and then suddenly, boom. Overnight, I was in a pit of despair. And I finally was able to understand my son, what was going on with him. I had no understanding of what my son was struggling with. Every day he would get up and he would fight through it. He would be friendly and he would greet people. He was thoughtful. So suppose you were in a room. Most of you would think, okay, there's a very important person over there, and you would gravitate to them. My son would say, oh, the VIP, the celebrity, I don't care. I want to talk to the normal person. I want to talk to the everyday man. He would talk to anybody. He was fascinated with their stories. He was really engaged with people. He was a beautiful person. So I just thought, oh my God, my son was a hero. A real hero. I look at people who struggle with their emotional, mental health, or like Mike was talking about his experience with sobriety. You all are heroes to go through what you go through. I don't look down on those people. I look up to those people. And while other people haven't, they just go through life breezing on through, that's okay. But when you're depressed and you have no way out, I just couldn't even remember who I was yesterday when I was a quote-unquote healthy person. Who can I depend on? Who can support me? Who can help me out of this? I have a daughter. She was 9. She lost her brother. Could I go to her? I had to stand up and to support my daughter. If I was a total wreck, I couldn't help her. I needed to be resilient for her. I could have been in the psych ward, honestly. I was so out of it. But then I thought, my daughter, what am I going to do for my daughter? And that helped me to wake up. I didn't want to further traumatize her. I didn't want the police to take her away from me. Because my apartment was a wreck. I saw that in my future, and I stopped it. How do I be normal? How do I be this for my daughter? I need to wake up. What do I do? And that's how I was able to figure it out. But it was a challenge. It was not easy.
Thank you for sharing.
Reminds me, #MeToo movement. The videos, the movies, the TV industry, that area, many women experience a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of sexual harassment. But many women kept it in, kept silent about it. They shut down until one woman finally was brave enough to say, I am a victim. And the next woman said, me too, and me too, etc. And it just expanded to let them know they're not alone. I want to thank you. Why? Because I experienced something similar. Someone close to me almost took their own life. But where to go for the support helped me the same. I was at a loss. I was spinning. So I really do empathize with you. Thank you for your courage and for your ability to share everything that's going on. I realize that, many people they're not alone, and they can find ways to move forward and move on.
Yeah, and really, Terrylene, your story is about love. And that's really important for the deaf community. Many times we see people who are judgmental, they look down on others, they backstab each other, they retaliate against each other, they show hate toward each other, they twist the truth, they lie about each other, all these things. And I don't want to see friends be like that. I really set boundaries with those people. With love, I have to say, I have to move on from you. We can't be close anymore after people show their true colors like that. So seeing your story, I really connect with that. So when I had my surgery for my cochlear implant, I saw there was another man who had, I saw a man who had a cochlear implant. I said, what is that? And then, explained about what the cochlear implant was, and I thought, oh, okay, it's almost like a hearing aid with a cochlear implant. And I asked other deaf friends who had cochlear implants about their experience with it, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool, because I was born hearing, so I experienced sound for my first 4 years, and I could still hear. I had residual hearing. I could hear a lot of words. I also really enjoyed music, so I thought this might be a good fit for me. So I called the doctor and I said, hey, I'm like candidate for a cochlear implant. The doctor said, yeah, let's go through the process. So I went in, and I was really excited about it. And I went over to my friends, and I asked for their help. If they could pick me up after the surgery. They said no, they couldn't because they had an appointment already. So I was like, okay. So I called on another friend. Hey, let's all go. And this person was older and was very wise. So I was talking with them, and I said, hey, can I ask you a favor? If I have surgery tomorrow for my cochlear implant, and what they said was, be careful. You don't want to have paralysis or a stroke or something. And I was really shocked by that. That really threw me for a loop, that comment. And it really kind of made me angry. And I felt like, why did that person say that? Why didn't they say, like, oh, I hope your surgery is successful? So they didn't say that. They didn't say it that way. They said it in a really negative way. And I thought, that was okay. Thanks. So I went home and I was really nervous. I didn't sleep well that night. I was thinking about these thoughts that this person had put into my head. And I thought, should I do it or not? I was excited to go through with it. So I got up, went to my doctor's office for the surgery, and I went in, and I was still very nervous. I couldn't think straight at that point. I just wanted to have the cochlear implant, right? So, after the surgery was done, of course, they put me under for that, and then they sent me home pretty quickly, and I slept all day, and one of my friends who made that comment was there helping. So the nurse was trying to wake me up in the recovery room, and they said, okay, you need to drink some water. So okay, I got out, drink some water, and I wasn't able to drink it. I was like, my face is all wet. This isn't normal. In the bathroom, and I saw my face. My friend was like, "What's wrong?" And they said, "I'm sorry." Like, what do you mean? So, what had happened with this facial paralysis that happened after surgery? I wasn't sure who I was. My sign, when you sign the facial expressions, right? But half my face couldn't kind of express my eyebrow properly. In the deaf community, they really mocked me a lot. They made fun of the way that I signed after that. They bullied me, they teased me. And that, I had many issues from the deaf community in my life. Really, and I felt at a complete loss. I felt like I had lost everything. There was no love there, no one to support me, no one who cared about me. And so I just felt drama, backstabbing. Friends would come up and say, "Are you okay?" And I would say, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why do that?" And they would look mad. And I would have to say, "Hey, I've told you several times before that I'm ill, that I have facial paralysis. I'm not able to express my face the way that I want to. I'm not able to raise my eyebrows like everyone else would, or like I would like to. It's not my personality that's changed. I'm not a grumpy person. No." And they would say that over and over and over again. And I just got really tired of people not understanding that. And that's how I just have really been isolated. But some people who were there for me, were there to support me. I really appreciate those folks who were there for me. But the most of the time, I feel like I can't change other people's lives. I can remind people, but the love is really the most important thing. Being kind to one another, being compassionate for other people, supportive of each other, hearing people out, not to judge each other, giving them support, comforting them. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot out there, and I'm done with that. So I have a few friends who care and are very positive, and I really appreciate them. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
So thank you so much to each of the panelists. Thank you for sharing your story. It was really amazing. We have some questions now from the audience, and we want to turn it over to the audience for questions. And Tomas is going to sign your questions if you have any questions you want to ask any of the panelists. Anybody? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, can you stand up?
I'll copy. So stand up, please. I have a question for you. Going through jail and everything that you went through, did they provide interpreters, lawyers, everything, give you all of that stuff? It's interesting you speak. When I grew up with a deaf family, signing, I happen to be hard of hearing. I can hear a little bit. But I just got a hearing and I realized I can't understand everything at all. But when I was in direct conversation with people about meth, that's all I would talk about. You have crystal, you have meth, 5 deal, that was it. For the rest of the time, I'd be on my own and isolated. Now, that was what I was used to. When I got incarcerated, the 5 months that I was in jail, the prison didn't know that I was hard of hearing. I was sent into the Supermax, and then Supermax, I would fight with white supremacists that were in there in the prison. They have a strong political system. White must stick together, Mexicans must stick together, or black, or whatever. Whites do have permission of being white with Mexican, or black has to stay in their own area, Mexicans stay in their own area. Some can navigate between the system Asian or with black or whatever, but the prison system is really strict in that way. I wasn't used to that. I was used to the street, You have meth, I have meth, I don't care what you look like, I don't care what race you are, I don't care anything. You have the drugs, our conversation is going to be around that. But in prison, I would socialize with everybody except one, the one I didn't like, was white supremacists. So I would fight with them, and I would stay in the black only in Twin Towers for 5 months, and then I went back and arrested. I couldn't hear anything. We have a deaf pod, a deaf unit deaf blind unit up on a certain floor. And yeah, they didn't really have it. I didn't know anything about that. So they put me up there. So I met some deaf in prison up there. And that was a very short time. I met some Mexican immigrants, non-U.S. citizens, and they would sign. So it was really very cool and very interesting to go through that entire experience. But it would come in and out so quickly. I thought it was nothing for Mexico to come in. No, it was like that. But my socialization interpreter, that type of thing, none. It was just simple conversation with my lawyers, very simple sort of thing. Then the drug treatment program, when I went and sat there, that was the first time the interpreter was provided in the drug treatment program. My cohort, my classmate, my cohort in the institution and the drug program, they all knew each other. So, you know, the interpreter would come in, sit down. They're not a reflection. They're not part of us. You know, they were sort of different personalities, that different sort of thing. You know, the interpreter would be in that same, it would be part of them, very effeminate sort of thing. And then working in there, in that group together, we kind of look at this person, who are you? The interpreter would talk, someone would run across, an interpreter would. And then, no, don't, that's your boundary. You don't come anywhere near any of us. So they're running around, that was a reflection on me. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't want an interpreter. I didn't want anything to do with it. So in the drug treatment program, I really lost everything that was going on fine. But I knew how the system worked. You know, they would tell their stories, share their experience, or whatever the triggers are, what they used, or what they're, you know, whatever. And I would miss everybody's stories. They would go by, and then I would share. I'd miss everything that would go by. They would give me a paper. There's a paper. That was it. You know, just do their little paperwork. Until recently, my drug treatment program that I did for 2 years, if I didn't comply with the 2 years program, I would go to 6 years to prison. And one finally, a woman came in, an interpreter, and she was fine with the interpreter. Now that drug treatment program wants to expand that unit and expand the services that they have. They know I'm going to school for drug addiction. They want to link up and hopefully collaborate on possibly GLAD in LA, California, wherever Cal, and then start working with each other.
Okay, another question? So I have a question. I actually have 2 questions. Oh, actually. If you come a little bit closer.
Question for Terrylene. And you went to Geo, the Spirit Center. I saw it was wonderful. Really was very happy. Good artist, you know, a great sort of godly person. And I know I went to Gallaudet University, not really in depth, but we were closer and closer and closer. I knew him at university, gave sort of the stress, you know, in the studying, but Gallaudet should have helped him. Gallaudet should have helped Geo, you know, with his problem, help him figure out, help him navigate through those things. But it seems they didn't do that. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Well, I think that most people would typically see someone and think, oh, I don't want anything to do with them. They appear to have something, quote unquote, wrong with them, rather than asking them, are you okay? Do you need some help? Can I support you in something? And then let people know this person doesn't look right. They need support. No. Or if Geo were to reach out and say, I need help, you know, obviously there was something that was not right. He was really deteriorating with his mental health at that time. And of course, not everybody's going to experience things exactly the way my son did. He did exhibit an appearance change. He did look unwell. And that whole campus full of deaf people who could sign ignored him. They let him relapse, and nobody saw him. They should have been able to see him and alert somebody, a professor, someone in the administration, and to say that something was wrong with him. You know, reach out to a professor and say, hey, something's going on with Geo. He doesn't look right. He's behaving oddly. They all sat back and did nothing. It was really a missed opportunity for him to get a lot of support. And he should have been overwhelmed with support, really. But nobody contacted him, nobody contacted me, nobody let me know anything. I actually moved to be closer. And I felt like I had to go because I didn't want to lose him. But really, he was not ready. So it meant like, okay, go to work right away. That's society's timeline, right? You get married at this time, you get pregnant after that, you go to school at this time, you do this, you do that, first, second, third. Not everybody's going to fit in that first, second, third, stepwise setting. He went into college, and it was not a good fit. He should have gone out and taken a break, been be creative, make films, make music, and that would have been okay. Did I tell him, you have to do this, you have to do this? No. And that's not the way it should be. The community needs more support and more compassion, more understanding, more empathy. If you see somebody who is not, who doesn't look well, same idea as when you're in the airport. You see a bag alone, right? What do? You alert the authorities and say, oh, I see something, so I'm going to say something. This bag here maybe have a bomb in it, right? It's dangerous. There's a red flag here. This unattended bag. This bag has no film. This bag has no mind. People are really great at calling attention to this unclaimed bag. But a person going through it, who's struggling, who maybe exhibits an odd behavior, they run screaming from them rather than supporting and reaching out to them on their behalf. And maybe, you don't know how to work with this person, you have no training. You find somebody who does, and you say, hey, this person needs help. There should have been way more eyes on my son. For sure, my son would still be alive. For sure, he would still be alive. But too many people went, oh, yikes, this doesn't look right. I'm going to just let him deteriorate. And he died as a result of that. So thank you for your question. Really appreciate that. Thank you for remembering that and remembering that about Gio.
If you have any questions, hold on just a second. If any questions, if you don't mind lining up over here, it's just a little easier for us to be able to control this matter so we can go down the line. Just let me know. We'll go down there. If you line up, if you have a question, if you don't mind. How do I become addicted, or how did you become addicted, and how did you basically stop? You look healthy now. You look fine now. Really, me, my addiction, I think a lot of people don't realize people who don't recognize your own depression, they don't recognize something that's a big issue for drug use. People can go along with life, curious, try it. Yeah, they become addicted instantly. They don't want to feel whatever they're feeling before that. They don't want to fill that empty void that's in them, that depression. They don't really know what to do with life. I didn't know what to do with my life. I didn't know anything about that. So, I knew I liked drugs, and I knew that made me happy, but nothing else did. So, oftentimes, what goes along with drug addiction or side by side with drug addiction, maybe depression, they don't realize, they try something, and then all of a sudden they can't stop. They have to assess why they can't stop. Because the stats show that 20 to 30% of people that try drugs and alcohol will become addicted. The other percent don't become addicted. Why? They have self-control. Maybe they have the experience or the social experience. They don't become addicted or isolate. Those people who do become, they'll use alone. They don't want to be involved with anybody. They'll just decline from that point forward. So, as we're going through experience, I went through that experience. I was lucky to look back and sort of be able to reflect upon maybe I had serious anxiety growing up as a child. And people's expectations of me, I couldn't do this. I had to do drugs. I had to use in order to meet people, to meet their expectations of me, and to keep going. I didn't feel like I was good enough or I was enough for them. That was the expectation that was set upon me. And then I, could have died of drugs or homeless. Why? Because it was too hard on myself. I really should have let that go. I must have given myself some credit, given myself some grace or some peace, and then being myself. If a person doesn't like me for who I am, that's fine. Whatever, who cares? Find people who do like you for who you are. Who you are. You don't need to use drugs or alcohol to get that, to win people over. But I'm lucky in my experience. I've had the opportunity. I think really people in the society right now use a lot of hurt in the community, a lot of pain. People start to imagine mental health starts to get better. They're recognizing things that didn't happen. So I stopped basically just prison. I got thrown in jail. Didn't have anything there, didn't have the access. And the 2-year program means I must be clean and sober for 3 years. Oh, I couldn't even imagine prison. I didn't want prison for 6 years. So I happened to like becoming sober and healthy. And that was the best thing that ever happened. So how many years have you been sober so far? I've been sober for 3 years from then. And fully sober for 2 years. Drug program, I had friends who were at Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. I beat the test. They would bring, they thought they could do it. They would be gone for 3 days. The drug program showed me 3 papers, 3 weeks test, alcohol increase in their alcohol. Drug tests to see how much working with that program, or how much alcohol, the 3 is enough to kick me out of the program. But I can go to a judge, or I could stop drinking, and I'll be fine. So I stopped completely. And now 2 years sober from alcohol, and clean maybe about 29 days, 29 days no sober. So I'm doing well on that. I just want to share a story. You need to hold on just a moment. Thank you all for coming here today, class, for hosting this event. This workshop, why my name is Mental Health Awareness Month. Before I've experienced, I've been working with school for the mentally retarded. And I learned about mental health through that program. My stepfather is a psychologist, and he taught me a lot about psychological issues. As I grew up, I experienced some similar issues to the panel here before, and I transitioned in my life and my challenges through drugs, through addiction, AA. Then I also feel touched that, the Terrylene's loss of her son, Gio, we've met in the past. It wasn't an easy loss for her, for their family. So I lost my mom and my sister both from cancer. 2 years ago, they're gone. That caused a lot of depression. Made me very sad. That's when I stopped drinking. From then on, I stopped because, I had liver failure issues. So, sorry, the interpreter missed that. Encephalopathy, it's a very large word. I need mental confusion. That is what I experienced because of the one night. So, the racism in prison is pretty much there. I'm half white, half Latino. And in jail, the police would mock me, they would laugh at me. It wasn't cool. But I put through it. Lucky I was not in prison with other people. I was alone overnight in the drunk tank. and I was able to get out. That was a very interesting experience for me. What it was like to be just confused mentally. If you want to learn more about these issues, you can do research on the internet. It's really very interesting. I would love to come here again and share more about what's going on. I had a lot of experiences going through. Happy to be here. Happy to come. Thank you so much. Yeah. And thank you for sharing your story. Really great. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have one last question. Can you see her? Okay, hello. So Terrylene, your story. We have really learned a lot from you. To not go over that line, not cross boundaries. And to really to notice those changes. Even with certain types of people. So yeah, I'm trying to imagine how we can help people. So that's the question: how can we help others? And that's worse when people are really nosy. Yeah. So the deaf community and the world at large, if someone were to say, "You don't look right," it's important to smile, at them and say, if it was a hearing person, you feel kind of stuck, right? How does a person with a different language support somebody? But when we have that common language and that common culture amongst the deaf, we should be able to say like, okay, who are your friends? Let me reach out to your friends and see, hey, can you come support this person? They need it. For example, when I went through my own experience with depression, people would say like, hey, contact me if you need me. They would say the onus was on me to contact them. Okay, I can't even get dressed. I can't even get out of bed. How am I supposed to contact you? Okay, if I got dressed, I would be totally sapped of energy. That's part of depression. Like, okay, why don't you contact me? There were some people who felt like, okay, I wasn't sure if I could trust them. If that person were to ask me to contact them, I would say like, okay, yeah, I would. There were other people who would say the same thing, like, reach out if you need help. I would be like, I don't trust you. So they would say like, okay, call me, FaceTime me, meet me on Monday. And I would try to remember, okay, Monday, okay. And then they would say, okay, I'll talk to you on Tuesday, right? So, but I couldn't do it Tuesday. And then, okay, let's do it Wednesday. And then they would say Thursday. And then finally they would contact me, and it would be Monday. I'd be like, okay, all right. So I would have to go out for a walk, get some time in nature, time to sit down with them, get some tea together, whatever. It was hard. It was really hard. But it was really important that we be there for each other, right? That's the long and short of it. Be there for each other.
Okay, so hold on just a moment. I want to add really briefly to that. Hold on. Just adding. Hold on. Hold your questions over here. So here in America, typically people are afraid of litigious nature. So that's one large problem. Secondly, people here in America feel they need to have proof. If you suspect depression or you suspect something has shifted or changed in that person or they're going through something, you don't need proof of that. Just tell somebody. It's as simple as that. Hold on, we're going to control questions.
Okay, so we want to make sure we control the flow of communication. I'm going to ask for your help. If you have a question, please stand up against the wall over here. So people who have questions, line up over here, please, so we can kind of get control of the communication in the room. Thank you so much. Okay, so yeah, thank you for your time. It's much easier this way for them to be able to see the questions.
Questions for Terrylene? Hold on. I have a question for you. I'm having experienced my grief and loss from two people I've lost. So someone said, oh, you should forget and move on. Don't weep about it. Don't cry like a baby. Be strong. That puzzled me a little bit. So grief has no basic limit to this one. There's no way to grieve and loss and forget and move on. That's not, I've been saying this for a long time. Like since 2020, I can't sort of just, it continues to be a traumatic experience and a traumatic pressure for me. And I struggle with grief and loss to this point. But you need to understand and, about grief and loss for that, to show compassion and empathy. So they should understand a little better its individual experience.
Yes, and I feel for you and your loss. And I feel like we understand each other in that. So when you're grieving, what do? You kind of close your eyes and you send love out to the person who's no longer here. Because when that person, if they were here, if my son were here with me today, that means that my relationship with my son, is it done? No, it's not done. The relationship is just in a different world, a different plane. So he's not here with me to feel and tangibly, but my son is here. He's with me in spirit, and I can feel it. So many times I would feel a little something, and I would know that he was there. I would feel a little wind in my hair, a little something on my back, of grandma's hair. I can feel, I can receive this information. The grief is like, it's thick. It's like a big cloud. Kind of like if you put dirt in a glass of water, grief is in there. It's mixed all in there. At some point, it'll settle out to the bottom. And you can see through the clear water. There's still the dirt at the bottom. You can still see that gunk and that mud. That's the grief. It's always going to be there, which is fine. The point is, grief is settled out, and you can see through to the love. And I would send the love, and at some point, you feel it back. We really have to learn patience with each other. And when they make those stupid, I'm sorry to say, those stupid comments, oh, why don't you just move on? I just feel like you clearly have no idea what you're talking about. Or do I owe them an explanation? Absolutely not. And I'll tell them, that's a ridiculous comment, I don't owe you anything. People will be kind of taken aback by that. That's fine. I'm just sending love to the person that I'm in. And I just take the changes as they come. Send love, and over time, more laughter comes in, more enjoyment in life comes back in. And I know my son is looking down at me and saying, hey, awesome, Mom's laughing again. She's having fun. He's like, Mom, have fun. Because he's not like a chain, he's not a burden to me, right? He doesn't want to pull me down. He doesn't want to be a heavy weight. He wants to be light.
Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry about your loss.
I feel your loss. I appreciate you.
We're partnered together for 20 years, really. There's a lot of love there. And 8 months later, my father was gone. That was really hard. And it grieved. And it was just an incredible impact on my life.
Absolutely. Grief is hard. But like I said, you're in the middle of that muck and that mud, that thick dirt. It will settle down. It will settle out. And something may happen that will dust it all up again. And you'll be back in it. The thick of it, but you'll be okay.
Thank you. Hello, hello. This is for anyone on the panel or all three of them. Within your experience of grief and depression, what's next in your future? What do you want to do?
me, I'm in a continuous school, addiction studies, and I love that type of thing. That's the one area that I want to do. And I'm interested in a drug and rehab program. I'm really excited about that, and I'm really excited to get in there. And I can't really stop thinking about all the kinds of being sober in that community and that whole area. Also really involved with the fitness community. I'm thinking about maybe somehow incorporating a physical program with those in recovery to kind of keep that bond going. And then going back to Skid Row maybe in the city of LA, it's really has a lot of problems, but one, they don't have enough people who are, there was part of people in the city who were good to me.
Oh, I feel really touched. For me, what's next is I'm just gonna continue to be a good mom for my daughter. Really continue to support her, and it's fun for me to see my daughter explore arts and her to grow as a creative person. I really love that, and I'm taking care of everything, right? Everything's on my plate, and then when my daughter goes out and becomes independent, I feel like I can be more creative, travel, and I feel here. I want to do this, and I want to support my community and my community's health. I want to educate people similar to you, Clyde, and I want to do poetry, and have fun. I have wonderful conversations, cook good dinners, be with friends. That's it. Yeah, thank you. And then for me, my plans for the future, I would say that I want to have good health. I really want to focus on myself and fixing what needs fixing and doing the things I need to do to become a healthy person. I have diabetes, so I really need to invest in my own personal care, and I really need to clean up my numbers, get my numbers down. I need to work out more, and go to the park, meditate, walk, be in conversation with God. It really helps me with my recovery and everything, and my health. And I read the Bible, and and I engage with God in that way, and that's really helps with my health as well. And what I do, I'm out there, I walk around, I see my family, I mind my own business, I look for positive thoughts out there, rather than dwelling in the negative. That's not helpful, and I know it's not going to make anything any better. So anything that's toxic is not healthy for me. So I really have to be careful who I engage with. Most of the time, I just want to enjoy things and move on in my life.
Bless you all, and have a hotline to help anybody. There's a hotline out there.
Yeah. It's 988. If you all are feeling like you're having suicidal thoughts or ideation, you're considering harming yourselves, and they have a video phone connection for 988. You can talk directly and silence with the video phone. It's really great.
I'm going to add in there, so hold on just a second if you don't mind moving over real quick. Okay, not anything. Damn thing. Can you see me okay? Okay. So there are two things I wanted to add in comments. The first comment I want to add, what would help is if young people, it doesn't matter if they're hearing or deaf or hard of hearing, is to avoid drugs, obviously. And AA would help, and maybe bring in an ex-addict or an ex-person in recovery to send out a warning, sort of, don't do the drugs, don't do the alcohol, don't do the drinking, don't do those sorts of things. And be involved in sports instead of that to make yourself healthier. The second thing, if you're talking of suicidal ideation, what might help you is to remember
knows those in the past, or those happened in 1980s. One person himself, the cult leader, Jim Jones. He led a cult in South America, and they all took their own lives, were committed. And they did the punch, the Kool-Aid. Like somebody would say, you drink the Kool-Aid, meaning you're mentally weak or you're part of a cult, and you wanted to take your own life. That happened in the 80s. I was at SSD. It was all over the news. At that time, I didn't really, it was shocking to me. First time I heard the word suicide. Ironically, later on in life, now, near my apartment on Hoover and Alvarado, the tower there, the church building, where they used to be, Jim Jones, his people. And now every time I go by on the bus, on the way to see my doctor, I see the church building, and it makes me look back at those times in the 80s. It was a really sad situation. That cult, that unfortunately 90 people. So whenever you're thinking about suicidal ideation, remind yourself that it's a sad situation. See your counselor, or sit with friends, or your family. Just talk. It's important just to talk. To find something to feel comfortable with, and to express yourself and feel better in that way. So that can help. And then I know. Move back a little bit, tiny little bit. Hi.
Hello to you all. Thank you for your stories. It's really wonderful. It really touches my heart. And you especially, Terrylene. I know your son is gone, my son is not as well. He's in heaven. And this Sunday is going to be his anniversary of his life. So Wes is out there. They're both watching us. So thank you so much. I appreciate you on the call. And thank you to all my friends who give me strength.
Thank you so much for coming. For some people viewing online, hard to see the sign language, we apologize. We will do better in our next event. Today's panel, we really want to just thank them so much, and remind yourself it's not bad to ask for help. You don't worry about the pride, I can do it on my own, but you can see these individuals here, they needed to ask for help. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It is being brave. So we want to recognize and thank and appreciate our panel and our presenters and our moderator, Dr. Garcia, today. And we have one announcement. Chris, if you don't mind coming. Okay.
Hey everybody. There, everybody feeling good? I'm going to introduce myself, my name's Chris, it's my name sign. So I wanted to introduce an event that Clyde is going to be hosting for mental health. It's called Embrace Yourself. And it's going to be focused on the stigma and removing that stigma surrounding mental illness. And so we have activities and presenters, we're going to have some entertainment, some free food, and some special guests. And it's going to be the Viz family. If you all know who that is from social media, they're comedians. They're going to share their story and their journey, and talk about some fun stuff, and having, release some stress with some levity. And we're going to have also resources here with different bags full of information. If you need more information, I'm going to be back at the back table with some flyers. And I'm sorry, I forgot to announce when it was. That's the important part. It's going to be June 14th. Appreciate if you can fill out a quick evaluation of us. If you need translation, we can do that for you in the back as well. My last comment is we have light refreshments that are ready for you all downstairs in the dining room. Some hot pizza and some wings that just arrived, and a little bit of salad as well. So enjoy the food before you take off. Thank you so much for coming today, and have a safe drive home. Bye-bye. And thank you for watching.
I didn't know I would follow you.